Hello, Oracles, and welcome to episode 12 of Oracle Investment Club, Tesla Weekly. Here's Vin. How's it going, Vin?
Doing well. How's everyone?
So quite a wild week for Tesla. Had lots and lots of red, and then one awesome green day, and then back to red today. So what is causing all of this mayhem in Tesla right now?
Yeah, it's been a little tough few days here. Trying not to look at it too much. And I think ARK Invest came out and said we're officially, according to them, they think we're officially in a recession. And she started buying Exxon and stuff.
Yeah, it's funny, she did that and then they bought GM and I'm like, whoa, or Kathy, and then we saw, Meet Kevin had mentioned how Warren Buffett had been investing in oil as well. I actually talked about it on my video tonight, thinking about it. If this is going to be oil's swan song, they will have one last run before they die off. So realistically, if you're looking for a place to invest your money, that might not be a bad area. Personally, I'm not going to do it because I don't believe in that as the future. And I'm not just in this for the money. So I'm not going to. But quite honestly, it's not a stupid play. I mean, especially for Kathy, whose investment is so beat up right now, to get into something just that is on the green side would be beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. I was like looking at the stock, kind of had the same thought process. And then I was even just more so, I want to stay focused on the long term here. And I just hate playing the short term game. So I didn't do anything with it. But I mean, yeah, you could make that argument if things continue to get worse. But at the same time, I feel like oil stocks have already run up so much that this is probably got to be near the top. But, as a hedge, it may not be a bad idea if we're in a recession.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at the data that we're getting in coming from a recession standpoint, more and more signals are pointing towards it actually happening. I thought we were going to get it and probably get like more of a paper recession than anything. But I think at this point, we might actually get a bad recession. Elon even today said himself, he goes, the next 12 to 18 months are going to be rough. And, if Elon is seeing this, then obviously for the business of Tesla, he's going to be paying attention to what can we do to get through this ourselves. This is why they plan. So Tesla's already figured out their game plan to get through this. It's going to be rough. We'll deal with it. But the way I look at it is Tesla's got their plan in place for it. So what stocks do I want to invest in? The companies who have a plan in place for this.
Right.
And if the stock's going to take a beating, that's just a better discount for us.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's funny. I was just listening to his Financial Times interview today and, he addressed all that stuff. And then exactly when you look at it that way, well, either way, Tesla probably could be the best play here as a hedge or not, because, they've got the demand. Clearly they've got the pricing power, so they'll be okay. They could ride out the storm here. And so then you could make that argument that Tesla is not only a long-term good play, but it could potentially be short-term. The company will do great. Who knows with the stock price here, if the market really starts dipping more.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Looking at a split coming up potentially, I'm still guessing you're going to do at the end of August. But if we're going to be going into a deeper recession than we thought, if we get a split, that's going to be a lower priced stock. A lower priced stock during a recession is going to trend better, and we'll have more investors coming in to keep the stock price propped up.
That's a great point.
Whereas, if we were not going to split, stick around $700, we get a recession, a lot of people are going to dump out of the stock to make any money that they possibly can to just naturally bring the stock price down even further. But if they split and the stock price is $70 to $100, then you're going to have a lot more people who are like, you know what, I'll hang on to my shares. And then you'll have a whole lot more other investors who are like, that's actually an attractive price for me right now.
That's a great point. Yeah, it'll make it, more affordable, relatively speaking. So what do you think? Is it going to be 10 to 1?
Oh my God. I've had so many of my subscribers asking what it's going to be now that the stock price is getting so depressed. And I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things because obviously we're just making assumptions that it's going to be happening at the end of August. There's nothing that says it has to. We're just going to have the vote on August 4th to determine, if we're going to allow the shares. And if that happens, maybe they'll do it right afterwards and we'll get one in August. Maybe they'll wait till the end of Q3, around election time and wait for a run up at that point. There's so many unknowns. I think, though, we know that Q2 is going to be a rough time for the stock anyway, just because, Shanghai not getting back to full ramp until June 1st at the earliest. So I think we're kind of at a point right now where we're expecting this. It's getting priced in. How much of a run we get going into the split, I don't know, because, they'll determine the ratio before we see the run. I don't know. I think at this point, if the stock price holds where it's at, 10-1 most likely, maybe 5-1, but I think 10-1 to bring the stock price down under $100 wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, I could see that. 10-1, I feel like makes sense because I think it makes sense for it to be a big on the bigger end versus like the last one was 5-1 because of making it easier for the employees to purchase more stock with their plans, and also like getting it to because last time they split 5-1, the stock was 2,000, so it only brought it to 400, then it quickly doubled. So it really still wasn't in the reach of, I'm sure, a lot of people who would buy some if it was cheaper, relatively speaking, again, obviously, but there is a real psychological effect to stock splits, and this stock split is never a bad thing. Like companies only split when there's doing really well,
unless you're game up, and then who knows. But
that's true. That's anything could happen there.
But when you've got a strong fundamental company splitting, it's always a good thing.
Right, exactly. I would love, like, selfishly, for it to be even more like a 20-1 split, because the way I think about it is just if I have 20 times more shares, and then for every dollar it's going up, you're making that amount of money for every $1 increase in Tesla's share price. The numbers start to get nutty and exciting.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think about, looking at Amazon and Google, they're doing a 20-1. That's going to bring their stock price down to about $100. Apple right now is trading just a little bit over $100. So bringing Tesla down to that $100 range would make a lot of sense. So 20-1 would, I think, depress it too far down at this point, unless we do see a run. But maybe that's why Tesla hasn't announced anything yet, just because they're waiting to see what the stock price is going to do, as we're getting to the end of Q2, see where it's at that point. And then they'll make a decision as to whether they want to go 10-1 or 20-1.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think, you're probably right. 10-1, it kind of keeps it cleaner too, with the market cap is kind of easy to keep track of. And then, so from his, did you see his Financial Times interview?
I did. And actually, one more thing about the split though, I wonder, and I'll have to do some research, I wonder what margin levels were back during the recession of 2008 and 2009. My thoughts on this are, obviously, when you have a stock split, options become a lot more attractive and available to many more people. If we're in a recession, do people tend to go into margin more because they don't have the same cash flow coming in, and they're tending to gamble more because they know that eventually we're going to come out of a recession? I'm just wondering if maybe that's going to throw a lot more volume into options during a recessionary time after a split.
That's a great point. And I was going to bring up, the options too will be greatly helped out by the split, but that's a great point. I would think, just like, I don't know for sure, but I would think that what happens is the people who, like, savvy advanced investors know, like, okay, recession, bottom, this is the time to take a margin. I would think most people who are just, looking to, like, gamble or whatever, kind of already did that when they were riding it, or, the irrational.
And they're still in it now, and they're doing more margin to try and get themselves out of it.
Exactly. So, like, by the time, if it really keeps dropping, like, they'll be wiped out. So, like, I would think that there's more margin use in the bull markets versus a bear or recession, because the people have spent all the margin already who are, like, into it,
Oh yeah. I wonder if there's a way to track smart margin, like the people who obviously know what they're doing and know to get into margin at the right times.
Yeah.
There's a way to track that.
I know with the options on Fidelity, you can see, I don't know about margin, but I can see, like, the biggest, option trades of the day. So you've got, like, JP Morgan, let's say, buys like $100 million of calls or whatever they're doing. But I don't know if you could track the margin. That would be interesting.
Yeah. So going to the Financial Times, I did see the interview. Gosh, I saw it like 2 days ago. It's been so long.
He made some really interesting points. He got me looking at, all the EV startups now. He kind of mentioned how, what can they really do that Tesla or the legacy OEMs at this point can't? And, the track record is not so hot for automobile companies. There's only two of the hundreds or thousands that haven't gone bankrupt, being, Tesla and Ford. So the picture is a little grim for these startups. And he was saying how, like, to make matters worse, they're kind of jumping into the deep end and they're skipping, like Tesla went through getting everything wrong and making all the mistakes on a small scale. They're jumping right in already to mass scale. And the margin for error there is just going to be so much smaller. So I feel like you're going to see them, they're going to fold more easily because they kind of like rushed into that mass market. But I mean, it could work out for them too, because if you start slow here, I guess you're never going to get any meaningful market. So like you kind of have to.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. And think about, even companies like Apple, when Apple puts out, a new iPhone, but all of a sudden they find that they have got a massive bug that's in it. That's huge. And that's a company who obviously has been around for a while. They know what they're doing, but they still on mass scale products have an issue that comes out, and they've gone and they've learned from all their mistakes. I mean, heck, the antenna thing that ended up getting, what's his name, fired over there, Tim. And, it happens. So thinking about, like you said, these startups who haven't gone through this, they haven't learned anything. It's a flip of a coin. It's definitely a gamble, because if they do get through it successfully, they can be good. But one hiccup and they're toast. Obviously, a lot of the Chinese automotive makers who have been doing this for a few years now are on a good pace for it, which is why Elon mentioned that them and VW are on the best pace right now where they're going.
Right. And they have the government backing too.
Yeah, but looking at Tesla has stuck with, they've got their 4 models, and yes, they're going to come out with some new ones, but people are like, well, they don't have enough models, and I'm like, but they have learned and perfected the models that they're on. You start looking at these legacy automotive makers who want to do 13 to 50 different models. Like, that's a lot of mistakes that can happen along the way.
Yes.
Just looking at Tesla themselves, Elon's like, the best part is no part. So fewer models is better for efficiency.
Right. And that's the other thing. I mean, yeah, when it comes to volume production, it's a lot easier to sell more of only 5 models. There's a great chance that Tesla gets to the point where, let's say, they can sell 10 million models, because vehicles, because they only have 5 different models. And yeah, there's a lot of, similarity. It makes it better cost of scale and everything. But if you're making 30 different cars, there's no way it doesn't slow you down. So maybe that means, like, if GM wants to do 30 cars, they're only going to be able to crank out 5-6 million, or at a maximum. I would think that they're capped where they are today. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. The most market share they can ever get back to, let's say, would be historically the ICE market share they had. So let's say that's about 8 million vehicles sold a year. But then again, chances are Tesla didn't exist back then. So now, like, they're only going to take market share and compress everyone else's market share. So everyone else stands to lose X amount. We don't know yet, but it's definitely going to be significant. And Tesla is just the one who, the quickly that they can get this done, has the most to gain here, because they're just going to grab as much of the market share as they can. And that's what Elon has said on the calls. That's another reason why they have only a few models, because it's about, getting mass market share.
Oh yeah. And, and think about it this way. You're going to go bake yourself 1,000 cookies. Is it going to be more cost effective and efficient for you to bake 1,000 chocolate chip cookies, or 200 of 5 different types of cookies? I mean, straight math. You're going to have to spend more money on different ingredients for all of these different cookies, and you're going to have to use more pans to cook them all. You're going to have to use more, time and effort to kind of split it all up, and it's definitely going to take you significantly longer to make those 1,000 cookies 5 different varieties.
And then when you throw in that we already know GM has to sell 5 times as many cookies to make the same amount of cash as
Tesla, they've got to make 5,000 cookies versus 1,000.
It does not paint a very promising picture. There's and the other thing too is, while the OEMs, we'll have to see how it plays out. You can make the argument that they are electric car startups as well, because they have never done this. They have somewhat more experience, but who knows? It could be a completely different ballgame. We know there's way less moving parts, and there's probably a great chance that Tesla, I think that is the only way this plays out, is that Tesla already has mastered how to produce these electric vehicles. it's going to take them time, even though that they've been manufacturing ICE cars. I think it's going to take a very long time for them to get as efficient at it as Tesla too.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and we've talked about it
If
before.
ever.
We've talked about it before with Tesla. From breaking ground to full ramp is about 3 years. With Shanghai, it took them 3 years. So, and they do it 3 times faster than anybody else. So there's no way that even, and not only that, but even if, let's say, Legacy is able to do it that quickly, they haven't even broken ground yet. Tesla already has 4 factories up and running, already breaking ground on expansions for 3 of those factories. And who knows what they've got going on elsewhere that they haven't announced yet, and we can get on to Indonesia from there. But I'm like, they already have all of these things going where nobody has even started yet. So even if they could go at the pace of Tesla, they're still 3 years behind.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, it is crazy to think about the traditional, time it takes to get these cars to market for the legacy OEMs. Yeah, like you said, Tesla, let's say it's 3 years, them it would probably be 9, because there's so many things. Like, they have to establish the funding. They have to convince the company why we should spend X amount of billions of dollars because it's going to get us this return. Maybe that takes a year. Then it takes a few years for the design team because they have to, send this out to someone because they're not doing everything in-house. Tesla has, done it all in-house and become vertically integrated, the traditional way. So they're using, they have to figure out their own funding. Then they have to outsource it to a, design team that's, a third party. Then they have to get the engineers to make it a reality. And by the time all this plays out, yeah, it's like almost a decade, maybe more, has gone by. So they just cannot possibly move quickly unless they're able to vertically integrate and do everything like how Tesla has. But I don't think the UAW is having any of that.
Oh yeah, and even if they learn from a lot of what Tesla did, Tesla's got patents on the open out there, and you can do whatever you want and learn from Tesla. They don't have any secrets. They're pretty transparent about most of their stuff. But it's like, even if they learn from that, they still have to learn it and do it the same way, or try to figure out how to do it on their own and their own way. And so it's still going to take them a while to get to that point.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty interesting. I was thinking about that today because Elon was talking about that in the interview with the patents, how they've open sourced everything. And yeah, like, because this is just a company, like, just there it is again, that they're committed to, what's best for the greater good. I wonder if it has negatively impacted them and it, will help others catch up quicker, but that's what they want. And I think there's a good chance, this is like the new way of doing things, that by creating the greatest good, you actually do become the most prosperous company. It's not like, let's say 50 years ago when it was just about like hoarding and greed and, like, people buy into that transparency, and it kind of can give, I think, both investors and the people that want to work there, it can end up being an advantage for them, I think, too, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, think about Apple. You think about Apple when they came out with the iPhone. If they had open sourced their technology for the touch screen without having some teenage kid, figure it out and sell it off to Samsung for VW Jetta, it would have been, it would have been basically the same thing. But if Apple just open sourced it to everybody, the technology would have been here sooner than it was. And I mean, I think either way it would get out there, but I think it shows a lot of who Tesla and Elon are by open sourcing it and saying, look, this is the best for humanity. This is the great ideas that we've had. Go ahead and use them, and let's all go in that same direction. I think it speaks volumes for what they stand for.
Yep, because Tesla's all about doing the reality of good over the perception of good.
Yes.
That's something Elon's been harping on too. And yeah, I think Apple might be one of those companies too that's, at least historically, done like the perception of good over reality. And again, it just kind of goes back to my point of like, it could be a disadvantage because, yeah, like, it'll help people catch up quicker and compete with them, or it could actually be another strength for them. I think that'll be really interesting to see like how that plays out.
Oh yeah, I mean, thinking about, we've talked about it before too, is the more companies who jump onto EV adoption, the larger and faster EV adoption is going to grow, and the more Tesla's going to benefit from it.
That's true
Tesla
too.
So Tesla can open source all of its technology so people can get on board faster. It just means Tesla's going to succeed faster.
Right. It should help their case as long as they continue to, produce as they have been. I guess so. We got some news about Indonesia. Looks like
Yes.
a battery deal. So Indonesia's in, but India plant is officially out for the time being, I was reading.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I mean, yeah, they're probably good with, ramping Berlin and Austin. And I guess arguably they're ramping Shanghai too. That's probably enough,
Oh
factories for
yeah.
now. They.
Well, the good news about Shanghai being closed basically or slower ramping is they can stockpile supplies right now. So when they do get back to full ramp, they can, hit the ground running without a problem. The India thing, I thought India was going to be a great place to have a factory. Looking deeper into it, it would have to be a whole totally different line of vehicles for Tesla over there because, even the Model 3 is not going to sell well in that country whatsoever. So it realistically
It
would
makes sense to wait until maybe they have an even more
yeah,
compact
yeah,
car
compact
anyway.
car, or maybe some of those Arcimoto type vehicles out there. Something smaller would be great as well. So I think that's not bad. I know Malaysia reached out to Elon and said, "Hey, we're welcome to put a gigafactory over here." But talking, when Elon's talking about putting up gigafactories in places that are close to supplies, to make logistics so much easier. Their largest nickel supplier and some of their battery suppliers are in Indonesia. Now, Indonesia also drives on the opposite side of the road as most of the world. So it would make sense to put a giant factory there to produce vehicles that are like that. They can then distribute them to all of these countries that drive on the other side of the road. Whereas we know that China is going to be their major export hub, for the rest of the world. Indonesia could be their export hub for those vehicles. You've got Australia right down there, which is close by as well, who drives on that side of the road. So, that could actually be a great beneficial place. I guess Elon got invited to go back down to Indonesia in November. So I don't think he officially accepted that invitation, but I have no doubt he's going to go down there. Seems very excited about this. So I think we might get an Indonesia factory announcement by the end of the year.
That's a really great point. Like I hadn't thought of it that way, but I could see it. And if that's not already Tesla's plan, I think maybe you should pitch it, DM Elon. Because yeah, I mean, it could work out beautifully. Like you said, it would help them get that whole market that drives on the other side. And they could kind of test the waters here with just starting with the battery plant. And if that works out, favorably, okay, yeah, we'll produce our cars here. Like they're testing the waters almost. That could work out beautifully. And then, yeah, just back to Shanghai, I think this will be a blip on the radar. I'm really not worried about these lockdowns. Of course, that's all that's in the headlines, but it's literally going to be irrelevant in 2 years.
Oh yeah, times like these are the times I love. These are what I call fudge. This is, when we've got fear, uncertainty, doubt, grab extra, because it's like this fudge is obviously, we know it is a blip on the radar, not going to be long term. So if people are going to sell off on stupid news like this, I will buy those shares all day long.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. I am really curious though to see in a recession scenario, which you could argue we're already in. I mean, Tesla stock, I guess I'm looking here, is basically down almost 50% already, 40%, let's say, from the high of 1,200. I wonder how much lower it could go, but it is crazy to think a year ago this stock was in the 500. So it really ran up a lot once we got the Hertz news and everything, and it kind of blew up. It probably over the top, and it's kind of come back down to earth a little here.
We see the overreactions in both directions, and Tesla overreacts exaggeratedly in both directions. So yes, when we've got great Q3 numbers and then Hertz news blowing up, and I mean, actually, it was almost a good thing that Elon was selling when he did, because it brought the stock back down to earth. But you see these things, and it's going to run up, and it goes in both directions. But like you said, we're still up over last year significantly. And, Meet Kevin had mentioned something today. I guess only 25% of the time does Tesla trade below analyst price targets, the average price targets. And 2019, we were actually trading 50% below. And if we were trading 50% below at this point, we'd be down around like 450 to 470, which of course for most of us is pretty stupid low. But one of my subscribers had mentioned how there's actually a gap that goes down to 489 that stems back to November of 2020. I don't know enough about gaps to know how far back it could go to fill. I just know that they fill 9 out of 10 times, and that's it. So if we do end up retracing back to that point, filling that gap, but kind of little numbers matching up, whether we get there or not, I don't know. But I know that if we dip under $500, I am throwing a lot of money at this stock.
I was going to say, I would think, and they're going to come out of this strong. So whatever happens over the next year, and then it'll just going to be like a spring,
Exactly. And I
just
try
compressing the spring right now.
and that's literally exactly what I explained in one of my other videos is PE compression is just that. You're compressing this PE down, and the further you compress it down, the harder it's going to spring back up. And you look at a company like Tesla, who's strong fundamentals, that spring rebounding is all going to be based upon how strong your fundamentals are. And the Tesla is going to be continuing to grow 50% year over year for the next 2 years while this spring is compressing. That's going to be a massive explosion when we come out of this.
Yeah, and exactly. It's like you said, the fundamentals are great. 50% growth year over year we're looking at for the next few years is the projection. No debt. And more free cash flow every quarter. It's really setting it up for a nice run, hopefully on the other side.
Oh yeah. I mean, I look at for me, I'm trying
more of the EV market, of course.
Yeah. And like I try to coach people and explain, look, cash flow generation during these times is the most important. So, yes, I want to leave my job, but leaving my job would be just stupid right now because we're going into a recession where jobs are going to be harder to find. And I'm like, I want the cash flow coming in. You have the cash flow coming in and you can keep pumping that into the stock. That's what Tesla is doing for their own company. They don't have the debt. They just have cash flow coming in that they can pump back into the company during recessionary times. Guess what happens during recessionary times? Prices of things come down because inflation comes down. So now Tesla's going to have higher cash flow to be able to spend more money on lower cost items for the future. I mean,
yeah, that's a good point too. And maybe that's when they'll decide to, build the next Gigafactory.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is
they'll be the only ones who'll be able to afford it, building a factory at that point.
I mean, looking at real estate prices, I'm guessing that they probably locked up a bunch of real estate in areas that, hasn't even been announced yet, just because they were able to get super low rates, if they even needed to use that. But I mean, real estate loans and debt isn't a bad thing. So, if they were able to do that and basically get free money for the next, 10 to 15 years to pay these things off, I think it's brilliant. And then, like I said, once we get to the recession and all the prices of all the materials come down, oh, hey, guess what? Now we're going to spend money and it's going to be 40% less than it would have cost us a year ago to build these factories.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And another thing from the Financial Times interview that was interesting, they asked him about, is there a risk with China? Because that's another argument, people, bear argument that Tesla's heavily reliant on China. And Musk basically said that the Chinese market long-term for EVs is only going to be 25 to 30% of their market. Now, granted, like we said, Shanghai is a very big export hub right now, but the fact that 70% of their sales, they're thinking is going to come from outside of China is a good sign. So, whatever happens there. Having said that, they clearly have a very good relationship, and China has, for the first time ever, basically let a company, have their way. They didn't require Tesla to go the traditional route where the Chinese government basically owns 51% of the factory there. So I think, despite all the FUD, it seems like they have a very good working relationship, and it makes sense. It's in both their best interests. China needs to clamp down pollution, and it's kind of been a win-win, I think.
Oh yeah, and looking at, obviously we know Norway is basically leading the world with EVs over there. But I think when it comes to production, I think China is really looking to be that EV leader in the world. And I think, that's why their partnership with Tesla is so important. Sure, you can argue that when they get 5 years down the road and they've got XPeng, NIO, BYD, Li Auto, all these companies cranking much larger numbers, do they still need Tesla? How's it going to happen? But I think that's where probably in Elon's mind at that point, it's only going to be 25%. So as long as they're, in the playing field with them over there, it's really not going to matter.
Yeah, no, it can only help them. And it kind of gives all their companies something to strive for. They're catching up. They're up there. I think with the technology. And I'm sure they'll give them a good run for their money. But again, hey, the competition is good. And you said China wants to be the EV capital of the world, but that would mean GM and Ford won't be. I thought they're going to lead the way. I thought they're electrifying everything.
Oh, good golly. Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. And I wonder, honestly, I wonder what the relationship between GM and their EV in China is. I know that they have their whole separate divisions and everything that are over in China, but is it as good of a relationship as Tesla has with them for EVs in the future?
Yeah, the fact that they gave Tesla like such a great deal again of like not doing the traditional route like GM had to basically turn over 51% and they basically take all the proprietary tech, I'm sure too. The fact that they didn't do that means they were kind of eager to get them in there. And since then, it's been nothing but good things. I feel like, they seem to, it's a mutually beneficial partnership, I think.
Yeah. And I think I think for me, what I'm excited about is, obviously we have a whole lot of people here in the US who are like, that's made in China, that's crap. And I think China wants to get rid of that moniker for themselves. And, I think this is part of why they're excited to work with Tesla is because I think Tesla has basically said, China, you can go ahead and design the compact car. You can design and produce this on your own. This will be your baby. And for China to be able to say that they designed and produced a Tesla, that's going to be of quality, that's going to be significant to kind of change the world's view of them for their production quality. So I think that'll be huge. And I think that's another reason why China is playing so nice with Tesla because they're working with them with stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Was there anything else you want to get to?
No, I think that was
it.
Quite a bit of red. So let's get some green going here.
That would be lovely. But yeah, good buying opportunities too if you're still in the accumulating phase.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely, definitely time to buy. All right, everybody. Well, it's good seeing you all. We will see you next week for episode lucky number 13. Have a great one. Have a good one, Vin.
Bye, guys.